Okay, so yeah, the recording started. Thank you so much for chatting to me today, and like sharing your experiences post graduation. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, like where you're from, where you studied, and then we can kind of go from
Yeah.
there.
So I'm originally from Hong Kong and I started studying here in the UK since 2014 for A levels, and then I went into Slade for my BFA. Uh, and right now I graduated from Slade last year in 2019, and right now I'm doing an MA in contemporary art in Sotheby's Institute of Art. I'm
Brilliant.
still trying to finish that now. Yeah.
So it's a 1 year master's.
Yeah, it's a 1 year master's.
And well, let's start with maybe start with the Slade. Can you talk a little bit about your experience at the Slade? How was it?
It has been a bit of a roller coaster for me, I think. So I started being a painter, but at the same time, like really figurative. Quite not necessarily realistic, but it was very much about like accuracy and bodies and stuff like that. And I find people often trying to find a narrative in my paintings because the subject in the works are often so easily like you can easily give a name to it. Like it's easily seen, you can see what's going on. So people are actively trying to find a narrative within it. But then for me, it wasn't really about the narrative, but it was about putting these thoughts and actions together. So I kind of really rejected the idea of this search for meaning. Um, and then so towards my second year, I tried to move towards like abstracted forms of bodies because I still think the human body is quite important to me, as in it kind of establish some sort of presence that I really like. Um, so I tried to like develop that, and but at the same time, I was still trying to figure out what exactly am I trying to do? What am I trying to paint? And what does painting these things mean to me? So by third year, I sort of found what I really enjoy, like why I enjoy painting. It was pretty much because um, it felt in a way liberating to make work. And also, that time when I moved into a flat, there wasn't a bathtub. And I was really craving for like the possession of a bathtub in my own flat. And I kind of just channeled that into my painting. And that was weirdly the way how I found what really works for me is painting about things that I desire or things that are around me or things that I appreciate. And that slowly made me realize what painting does to me is that it helps me, or like it kind of channels my appreciation for things around me. Um, yeah, so that was kind of my journey in painting when I was in Slade. But of course, the students, like the like just being around artists all the time, it's so helpful, and the conversations you have, not necessarily about art. It could be about anything. It could be about getting lunch, where to get lunch, where to go for a drink after a long day of painting, but just being around really engaged, talented people was really useful and really exciting. Yeah. Yeah.
And how was your degree show experience?
Oh, it was a bit of a nightmare. It was so messy. I remember like there were tears. I was unhappy. I was excited. Um, because obviously everyone wants to show their works in the best way possible. So we were having like just arguments or discussions or heated discussions. I think that's the best way to put it about where to put works and what works best for our works. Because also Slade as a building, um, you do get quite a lot of space, but at the same time, it is still quite limited because of the structure of the building structure itself, and with all the mezzanines that they have, it means that some larger works couldn't really fit. Um, but yeah, I mean, like it's kind of like a learning curve for all of us to compromise as really opinionated artists, I guess. Which was challenging, but in the end, it all worked out really well. And yeah, and like when it was like the opening night, you just feel so relieved. And the whole week of preparation of like sanding the wall, sandblasting the wall, painting the wall, filling all the holes, painting the floor, and you're just like, oh, I'm finally done. And yeah, that felt really nice.
Do you have, obviously, like quite a lot of your work is very large scale. Do you have kind of issues around that, like logistically, either when you're painting or when you're showing? You've obviously alluded to that a little bit just then about the degree show and like making sure you've got enough space for your work. But have you found that since that there's kind of logistical challenges about painting to the scale that you paint at?
Yeah, well, Slade Studios allowed us to make big paintings, but then it's also like we call it the Slade big painting syndrome, where we start we start the year in like late September, and then in late October we've got this one thing called Big Painting Week, and every single time we've done that week, everyone's work just all of a sudden just gets bigger and bigger. Um, so obviously it's really hard to find spaces with so much wall space to have space for the painting to breathe and make it look nice. So I didn't put one of like a bigger painting that I wanted to put in the beginning, but that's I think it actually worked well in the end. Uh, yeah, but right now, especially now that I'm no longer in the Slade Studios and I don't have that much space, I'm trying to like downsize my paintings, which has been working quite well for me. I feel like I found a way to like work a little bit more concise and a little bit less messy, which helps to like when you're painting or when you're making work in general, you don't really want to be too distracted by all the thoughts that you have. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So that's you find that's working well for you, and it's not just that you're kind of pushing it, making it smaller, like for a
Yeah,
commercial
yeah.
kind of. And what about your peer group from the state? Have you kept in touch over this year, or do you feel like because you've gone on to a master's, it's been harder to kind of keep in touch?
I mean, we do try to keep in touch. We do still talk sometimes. I mean, it's a mix of both, like obviously as friends, so we talk about everything. Um, like next week, we're actually planning to meet again in Regent's Park because some of us are in London. So we've definitely kept in touch, and some of them were doing the BA course. So they're actually graduating right now. Yeah, so there's still like good conversation. We still keep in touch and know like each other about what we're all up to and exhibitions and residencies, stuff like that. And like it's such a good network, and um, you never feel just because you're like an alumni, you don't feel like you're no longer a part of that community, which is very lovely.
Is that the same with the tutors as well? You kind of kept following your tutors' work, or kind of kept in touch with the tutors as well?
Yeah. I mean, we don't speak like as much, but we still do like look at each other's work and like comment about it. And sometimes, like last week, I had a conversation with one of the tutors as well. So yeah, it's a good relationship going, and also just incredibly supportive. Like they're all so supportive, which is incredible. Yeah.
Um, would there be anything you would do differently if you were to redo your final year or redo your degree now, like looking back on a year later?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I wish I was a little bit more proactive in using the equipment that we had at Slade, like the workshops. I only got into etching in my last semester at Slade, and I wish I discovered that earlier on because I really enjoyed making etchings. Um, and because we've got also got like a woodwork and metal workshop, and despite I'm not necessarily like the most sculptural person, but also because I haven't really had a chance to try it. So I would have hoped that I gave it a go. And at UCL, we've also got the Institute of Making, which I had never really had a good chance to like really make use of that. And yeah, and like I also really wanted to do ceramics, but then I kept on being like, oh, but then I've got to like pick paintings to do, but I also want to do ceramics. Um, and I got super torn, and then when I'm painting, I completely forget about the ceramics, and then when I try to do the ceramics, I was like, oh, maybe I should be doing painting. So yeah, I wish I was doing more of that in my first and second year instead of cramming everything that I wanted to do in my third year because I was like, oh, this is the last chance. Yeah.
Do you think is that something you're going to try to do when you finish your masters, like with the kind of open access print studios or ceramics workshops around London? Is it something you think you'll try to dip into at a later date, or do you feel like it's kind of in the past now that you're just going to focus on painting?
I mean, I would definitely love to, find a print studio or like a ceramics space. I feel like for me to work, like to dedicate my time to something, I really have to like be around that space really often. So I'm actually trying to find residencies where they do provide that, where they do have a workshop and like kilns and stuff. At the same time, I can maybe like apply as a painter, but then also try those out. I think that would be like a really good option. Yeah.
And you've done a couple of residencies already, haven't you? Was that during your time at the Slade? You've done one in Finland and I think Cheltenham, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, at Cheltenham College. So I did the Cheltenham College one while I was at Slade for my in the summer for from second year into third year, and I did the one in Finland uh, after I graduated from Slade, just like the summer after. And I'm about to do one in Germany this winter. Um, and I should be doing one, depending on the coronavirus. I should be doing one in South America, in March. But yeah, like I just try to like apply for these things because I like being somewhere else. I really like a change of scenery because that makes me it makes me look at what's around me very differently, and I find that influence incredibly exciting. Yeah. So and I love residencies because like you get to meet new people. You're like completely in this foreign space. You're exploring. You're also exploring your own artistic practice, and exploring how you deal with your environment and how that is transcribed into your work. Yeah.
And what are the residencies that you've got coming up? What kind of residencies are they? What kind of spaces and what's the kind of offer or the structure?
So the one in Germany, it's in Leipzig. It's called I'm gonna butcher the word, but it's called like Pilote Küchen. Um, So they've got like a studio space with around, I think they were saying around 8 artists, other artists, and their program includes like international artists and local artists from Leipzig. So we get to like meet all of them, and it's like a shared studio space, and then it's for 3 months, and then in the end you like do an exhibition with them, and in between there's like talks and cultural activities that you can like get to know the area, get to know the art scene. Yeah, and the one in South America, they're called the La Guayaca Current.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Um,
B1 too. Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, and I was really curious. So they were saying you're gonna be like in a village, and I love that. I think that would be so fun.
Is it
I suppose I would.
the
Sorry?
tropics? Is it the tropics or is it the Atacama Desert one? Because there's two in South
I
America.
think I'm doing a tropic. Yeah, I was in a tropic.
Nice.
Yeah, and so they were saying we're going to be like staying in a village, and I suppose my work would not necessarily be paintings, but possibly like smaller works that can be made in that space that is like a little bit more portable because I feel like we're going to be moving around quite often. Yeah, and yeah, I don't really know what's going on really, but I'm excited.
Yeah, cool. That'd be great. And what about your experience on your masters? How's that been, and how's it been going straight into your masters from your BA?
So why I immediately did a master was because I'm on a student visa, so I kind of have to find something to do immediately, in order to stay in the UK. Uh, and honestly, I think it's been a great transition. I thought I was gonna be very confused. I thought it was going to be a very different world, but luckily, well, I'm not doing the art business course. I'm doing the contemporary arts course, which is again more about like art history and art theories. And people who are interested in it and people who are in the course are just, I think, they're just not business people, and I love it. And because like this stresses me out. But the transition of it, I think it's been incredibly smooth for me. It was easy to handle. It was a bit daunting in the first month where I was like going from casual times in the studio, you can go in whenever you want, to a really strict lecture structure where you're there at 9:30, you leave at 5. Um, but then it just took a little bit. It took a little bit of time to like adapt to it. And actually, I think that's really useful in terms of trying to like giving a structure to how I work. Especially right now, I'm kind of applying the time management that they kind of given us into like my working schedule, with painting and also being on top of uni. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It sounds like you're very busy. So much going on. Um, so apart from the residencies, do you have a plan for after you finish? Are you planning on staying in London, or are you going to go back to do you not know,
I would love to stay in London if I possibly can. I'm trying to find ways to stay in the UK. Also, given the fact of how this whole situation in Hong Kong is, I don't see myself going home necessarily, especially if I'm like, making art, and if it's controversial, then I'm in big trouble. Um, so I'm kind of looking into the artist visa, which I think gives me 2 to 3 years here. And sadly, I'm born after handover, so I don't get to get the UK visa with the BNO, which is the British National Overseas. Um, yeah, so I'm just still trying to like seek ways to stay in the UK, or just Europe in general. Um, because like I really like the German art scene, so I'd definitely love to like explore that a bit. So I guess I would probably have like come up with a decision after my residency in Leipzig. Like being there for 3 months, I would probably get a good glimpse of if I want to stay there or not, and then I'll try to like find ways to stay. Yeah.
And do you find, have you kind of kept, or have you got connections with the art scene in Hong Kong as well? I know you've shown there, but do you kind of
Yeah.
are you trying to kind of keep connections with both places?
Yeah, because like there are some Hong Kong, uh, no, like people from Hong Kong in Slade who did go back to Hong Kong and they are working there as artists. One of my friends, she's actually gonna be showing her work in Venice Biennale next year, which is super exciting. Ariel, very excited for her. Yeah, so like we do keep in contact. We speak. Uh, Not necessarily about painting because I think there's only one of them who is in painting, and the rest is in like media or like sculpture. But then we do speak quite often, not necessarily about art as well, but just like as friends, which is quite good.
And you've done loads of shows even during your whilst you were studying. How did you feel? How did you find that? Like studying at the Slade or doing your masters, and then also showing. You've shown quite internationally at the same time. How did you kind of juggle those two things?
So I was really lucky enough to have some friends who obviously like the shows in Moscow and Sochi in Russia. Like she was a recent graduate of Slade, so she was curating a show. So she just asked us if we wanted to be a part of it, and we're like, yeah, absolutely. And with shows in Hong Kong, given the fact that I'm from Hong Kong, I kind of tried to sort that out. So it's a lot about being uh, just being active about it, and because like these shows don't just come at knocking at your door, especially if you're an undergraduate, like a second year undergraduate. So we were actively like uh, applying for funding, applying for spaces. Uh, so like there's like a lot of effort involved. So when we're doing that, we're not painting that much, we're not making work as much, but at the same time, you do want to show as much as possible because it does build up not necessarily exposure, but your experience in um, just being like the experience of being an artist, because it's a lot of times it's especially these days is not only about making work but also about um, being able to use your work to communicate. Yeah. So
Okay, I have.
yeah. So yeah, just like a lot of time management, trying to be on top of what you're doing. Obviously, sometimes you do slack off, but like right now, I'm slacking off. But I've been like telling myself, okay, time to apply for more open calls, and I've been telling myself that for like the past month, and I still haven't done it. But yeah, so like we all have these moments where sometimes you're like super on it, and then after that you're like, oh, I don't know what to do now. It's kind of like making work. It's like you get this random urge of making work for like a good month or 2 months, and then all of a sudden you get this week of I don't know what I'm doing. You sit in the studio and you stare at the painting or you stare at your own work and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so yeah, it's just trying to find a balance for yourself. And
Do you
yeah.
have something that helps you when you are feeling a little bit like that? Is there something that kind of gets you back into the like creative mindset, or gets you back into feeling like you want to be productive, or does it just time?
Um, Definitely time, but also time also comes with, recovery. So just like sports, if you've had a long run, you need to recover. So if you had a really long period of time where you're just working all the time, you sometimes just need time to like unwind, sit on the sofa and not do anything, stare into the ceiling for 2 days, um, just to like, yeah, you just need to have a little bit of space to feel like you're not a machine. And then you can go back because, no one's a machine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, even
So
someone
just
who's
relax.
because you in your making, you make so
And
much
don't force yourself. It's so important to not force yourself
yeah.
because it's just or at least for me, I feel like it's very unhealthy for me if I force myself to make something, because if I force myself into doing it, I'd feel like the work is terrible because I forced myself to do it, and then because the work is terrible, I'm frustrated that it's terrible, so I get even more frustrated. So yeah, don't force it. It's okay. We all have it.
I think I have two last questions for you, because
Yeah.
I've been asking a lot of questions. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about working from home, because your studio is above your flat, isn't it? Where we can see now.
Yeah.
So how do you find having a studio at home?
I think having a studio, before lockdown, having a studio at home felt like I can do it anytime, anyway. So I would procrastinate with getting some work done. But then during quarantine, because you're kind of confronted with it all the time, it kind of makes you want to make work. And it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of making your home a workspace, which is what we're trying to get into anyway, because we're all in lockdown. So it's actually quite nice where I managed to find a way to separate what is comfort and what is work. So what I made, like my rules for myself is that I will not work in my own bedroom, because I used to write my dissertation, or like I used to write essays and work on my bed, in my bed. So what I'm doing right now is that I will never be in bed if I'm working. Um, and whenever I am working, I will try to like devote all my attention to it, uh, which I think was really important when it comes down to working at home. Yeah. But another great thing about it is that when you're at home and when your studio is at home, when you have I don't know, a brilliant idea, you can just like go upstairs and just like get it all done, instead of, oh, now I've got a brilliant idea. Now I have to travel to my studio and get it done. Yeah.
And I think it's my last question, although I probably think it's more. Any advice for students in their final years or recent graduates? Have you got any kind of any like things we can leave them with to think about for that? Because it's quite a funny transition, isn't it? When you the first few months after you graduate, and whether you go straight into a master's or you take a bit more time out, like I think it's probably one of the hardest times as an artist. So just wondering if you have any words of wisdom.
Um, I wouldn't call them words of wisdom, but for me, I suppose like with everything, it's a bit of a trial and error. For me, I'm kind of forced to go into an MA or like find something to do because of the whole visa situation. But if you don't have that issue, I think it's really important to prioritize what you want to do. But also, as graduating as an artist, it's you can't really sit around. You have to like be really active in seeking for opportunities. Um, you have to be able to accept rejection, because we all get that. Obviously, on, you know, social media or like on Instagram, we only show the exhibitions that we got to be a part of, but then we never show, oh, I got rejected from this, I got rejected from that. But then I think that's like the case for a lot of people, that they feel like because they've been rejected once or twice, they feel like, oh, I'm not too good of an artist. But honestly, like it's just about like keep going. Um, for me, I also like when I was about to graduate in my third year, I actually applied for I applied for two master programs. One at the Royal Drawing School, which I knew was going to be problematic because most of them are it's for British artists. So as an international, it would be quite tricky. But I just wanted to like try it out. And another one was an art school in Germany, and I got rejected from both, which was possibly because I was underprepared. I didn't really know what I was doing, but at least I tried, and I mean, obviously, I was really struck by the rejection, but at the same time, it's really important to be able to get yourself together and find other alternatives, which is what I did, like find another MA and apply for it, and like just try to get as many opportunities or apply for as many opportunities as you possibly can. Even if you don't get it, you will definitely get something. Yeah, so I guess that's like my advice. Just don't be too bothered if you're rejected, because we all need, like, yeah, we all get rejection sometimes, and it's okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It was so great to hear.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Stop the recording.
Recording has stopped.